So I'm assuming that you've either heard or are going to hear a lot of messages. This is graduating class here, but I'm talking to everybody too. Coming around this time of what you should do with your life and grand soaring messages of wisdom that you will no doubt forget in a couple of weeks as you prepare to leave and enter the next stage of your life. But I saw a cartoon that made me think of you a couple of weeks ago. It's a cartoon of a fishbowl. And there is a parent fish and a child fish. And they're in the fishbowl, which has enough room for them, and there's a little castle there, but that's about it. And the parent fish turns to the child fish and says, "You can be anything you want, no limits." And we are, as 21st century people, supposed to laugh at the fish. They don't know what they're talking about. They can't see that they're extremely limited in the fishbowl. The fish can't be whatever it wants, and there are limits. And I saw this cartoon in part of a lecture that was given by a guy named Barry Schwartz. He teaches at Swarthmore College, and what he was doing was talking about what he calls the paradox of choice. So what Barry Schwartz said is the official dogma of the Western world is that freedom is what makes human beings flourish. And if you want freedom, then you must have individual choice. And if freedom is what makes us flourish, and individual choice is what lets that happen, then the more choice, the better. And what Barry Schwartz is saying is that's not true. He says some choice is good, but too much choice is bad. He puts it this way: when all things are possible, what do you get? Liberation or paralysis? In this situation, when you shatter the fishbowl and all things become possible, you get a dead fish. What he does is he looks at the effect of choice on our lives, and he's not talking about choice of people in developing countries or people with a lack of resources. He's talking about a very specific era and group of people, you. And he says, here's what happens. I go into my supermarket and I see that there are 178 varieties of salad dressing. And we're paralyzed by the amount of choice that we see. He says, if we can actually get over this dread and anxiety, put the question, what do you want to do with your life in the place of the salad dressing? If we can actually get over that dread of 178 choices or more and make a choice, studies show that we have what's called anticipated regret. If there are 1,000 choices of a pair of shoes, I will never be happy with any of them, because if there's 1,000 choices, one of them had better be perfect, and there's no such thing. The science is revealing that the more choices and the more options we have after a point, the less we thrive. Our expectations about what that job or that spouse, what that salad dressing or stereo system or pair of jeans he mentions will be, are through the roof. And then he says what happens is we end up experiencing our lives as a series of disappointments after disappointments after disappointments, and then the studies show that what we're doing is projecting that disappointment back on our own character. When there were only two kinds of jeans, he says, and you didn't like the one you had, it was the world's fault. There were only two kinds of jeans. In today's world, if you're not happy with the choices in your life and they're not living up to your expectation of perfection, the answer we give ourselves is, it's me. I must have chosen something different. He shows that as increased rates of choice and freedom have come to Western affluent societies, the rates of depression and suicide have been accordingly growing. What he's doing is questioning the official dogma of the Western world. He's asking, is what they've promised us about human happiness true? I know that you know that the things that you're promised about human flourishing don't actually make you flourish for the most part, right? Most of the data suggests that if you believe that things are what make you happy, you actually give less to others, you're less satisfied in your committed partnerships, and you're more likely to treat people as objects. Hard scientific data shows that after a point and you're clothed and fed and can feed your kids, money doesn't make you happy. That ambition doesn't make you flourish after a point. That money, that things, that choice don't. And see, I think that your generation is going to have to, and I think mine as well, start to rethink what we've been promised about human flourishing in a very serious way, and that's a good thing. Because your generation will be, on average, $25,000 in debt before you buy a home, if you ever do. You will have double the rate of unemployment of our parents' generation and your grandparents. And you will be less likely to receive Social Security, benefits that are promised to us by the organizations that we're all a part of and are currently paying into. So we had better start thinking about what actually makes a human life good and whole and flourishing. Now see, this is a religious question. In theology school, they call this question soteriology. That's why you pay to go there. Soteriology means what saves us. Now, I know that language of what saves us makes more than one person in the sanctuary uncomfortable, so take a breath and let that sit for just a moment. But the question of soteriology is one that every religion and every philosophy and worldview actually answers, whether it knows it or not. Traditional Christian doctrine says Jesus. And the more Jesus, the better. Yeah? Right? What saves us? What makes human life whole? Buddhism answers this question by saying non-attachment. Non-attachment is what frees us from the cycles of samsara, what liberates us. The television tells you things and money, right? Almost every philosophical worldview has an answer to this question, and if you don't like thinking about it in terms of what saves us, think of this question: what makes human life healed and whole? So I grew up in the generation of Fight Club. And my image of the first time I said, oh, that's right, I got it, wasn't in church. It was of a person staring into a camera on a movie screen telling me that I've been spending my time working at a job I hate so that I can buy things I don't need to impress people I don't like. And that was the version of America that I was being invited to join. That stuck with me. Now, our history, Unitarian Universalism, has answered this question in varying ways, and it's changing a little bit, to be honest with you. Our history, and if you read the hymnal and the hymns that we read, and look at where we went on our coming-of-age trip to Walden Pond together. Most of you were on that trip with me. Who do we study and honor in our history? Emerson and Thoreau. These were people, and our history has answered the question, what makes human life whole? Primarily, and I think too much, with the answer, freedom. We've been the freedom people. Freedom of conscience, freedom of belief, freedom to be and do whatever you want. This is Emerson, who stood at Harvard Divinity School and told the graduating class to cast aside every mentor and model that they had, even the good ones. I'm not telling you to do that. Thoreau, when he went out to Walden, sat in the woods for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. But he really didn't. This is not rugged individualism. Thoreau's mom did his laundry when he was at Walden. This is true. When he was done harvesting beans and building cabins, often he went into town to grab a bite to eat and a pint. What I'm trying to tell you is that we hold up these models in Unitarian Universalism sometimes without giving you the context. They weren't alone. They weren't doing and thinking and being whatever they wanted. They deeply needed other human beings to thrive. You'll see the language changing now. In our public campaigns about justice, we are standing on the side of love. We're not the people who say we're standing on the side of believing whatever you want. I can have freedom, reason, and tolerance to the fullest degree and live a very sad life. I can be free, tolerated, and reasonable alone. I hope that if you leave this place and you think that we've only given you questions, I want you to know that we did you a vast disservice. I want to be honest with you in telling you not all answers are equal. Money and power and prestige and community and love and justice and stuff are not all equal opportunity players in human flourishing. Some of them are better to devote your lives to than others. For me, I had to struggle with this question even in my time in college and seminary. And I remember I told one of my advisors that my plan after seminary was to move to Texas and live here for the rest of my life. I had chosen a fishbowl. This would make me flourish. I would commit to a patch of soil and its people and love them for the rest of my life. And my advisors, very intelligent, well-known, beloved leaders in Unitarian Universalism, looked at me like I had come from a different planet. You want to do what? In fact, they told me it was the worst decision I would make as a minister. See, we were answering that question, what makes a human life whole and flourishing, differently. I saw their answer, whether they knew it or not. They said ambition, a career path, a known pulpit, and being a noted figure in this faith, that will make your life whole. And I told them, no, I'm going to commit to a group of people. I'm a part of a group of 6 or 7 couples that my wife and I meet with once a month at least, but they're friends of ours from college, and we all live within about 3 or 4 miles of each other now, and we keep trying to make that radius smaller and smaller and smaller. When one of us is struggling with meaning in our lives, we're not finding a job that makes sense, or dealing with health problems, or the troubles of having kids, or trying to have kids and not being able to, being free to believe whatever I want in my living room has never helped me there. Flesh and blood human beings who promised me that they will be there for me has. And so on this day in our congregation, and I hope everyone knows that this is not just for the graduating seniors, but I'm looking at y'all. Choose a fishbowl. Some things in your life that look like they're constricting and limiting are actually very freeing. Find what's worthy of limiting your life. Is it love? Is it justice? Is it compassion or truth? Is it a patch of soil, or is it sobriety? Sometimes choosing a thing that guides your life, even though it looks limiting, can be incredibly liberating. And you should know that whatever you choose to guide your life and its actions, it will have profound effects on you and the way you live, and the people you love and live and work with, and the children that you have or don't have, and the rest of the people who are influenced by your life. Because too often we find at the end of our days, as Thoreau said, that we are going to die finding out that we have not really lived. That we've spent our lives chasing after things that do not make human beings flourish. So whatever it is that you choose, and you don't have to be 18 to make a choice about this, whatever you choose to spend your life chasing after with ambition, whether it's a patch of soil, whether it is a church community, whether it is love or justice or sobriety, make sure it's something that makes human beings really alive. Because it will change the world and most certainly your life. I don't hope for you that you do whatever you want. I hope that you find something which saves and makes people whole, and that you spend the rest of your life building that. Best of luck. Amen.